Hey everybody, how's it going? How's it going? Okay, just thought about this for a little bit. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but you know how the Seventh Day Adventists are really legalistic when it comes to, and they use the Bible to support their legalism, but still, when it comes to the Sabbath day and stuff, right? They claim the Sabbath day is Saturday, which is technically correct, but also incorrect because yeah, the Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath, and yes, the Sabbath day is the seventh day of the week. But due to historical and other reasons, you'd have to go by the moon calendar, and you'd have to start with the moon calendar from the beginning of time. And both the Seventh Day Adventists and the Jews don't follow the Sabbath day correctly. Neither one of them do, really, because they just don't. But let me also say that you'd have to use the moon calendar, and that right now we use the solar calendar. So we use the wrong calendar, right, to be able to keep the Sabbath. And throughout history, people have added days to the calendar, they have took away days from the calendar, and they have added whole entire months. And they've restructured the calendar. Throughout history, the calendar has been restructured. Okay? It's completely been restructured to the point where you don't know which day it really is. The week, also every day of the week has been named. They used to not be named. Well, actually, I mean they have names from different. Um, there's different names for the days of the week depending on where you're from or languages or whatever. But we get the names basically from the Old English, which gets them from the Latin, which get them from the Greeks and the Romans and stuff, right? So most of the calendar changes have been because of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire has a huge impact on like everything that's exists now, along with the other empires. Like the Bible talks about the four beasts, and it also talks about the statue that's the four minerals, and then the fourth one, and then the last one is the last fourth one, and then the fifth part of the statue at the bottom is a mixture of the last one and clay. And the four beasts are then they bow down to the fifth beast, which is the Antichrist and stuff. So they're all talking about government systems and kingdoms. The last government system and kingdom is basically the renewed fourth kingdom in a modern day time frame. So it's and the fourth kingdom, of course, is the Holy Roman Empire. So as you can see, the but what the Holy Roman Empire was holy to their gods, they weren't holy to God. So if you know the Antichrist, he'll be holy because he will declare himself as Messiah, as Christ, as God. But he won't be actually holy. He'll be unholy. But that's not exactly what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that the Roman Empire has big influence in everything now, and that is why it's going to be a revised Holy Roman. It's going to be a revised Roman Empire. Okay, that's why we have the calendar the way we do now, because certain months have been added that were named after like August, for example, that's named after Caesar Augustus. August. Uh, if you didn't know that, fun fact. And every name, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're all actually named after gods, Roman gods, Greek gods, Norse gods, whatever. Like Thursday, for example, is Thor's day. And Sunday is actually the day the sun, for worshiping of the sun. You know. Now, we as Christians have implemented that to worship the Son of God on instead of the day where we used to be the sun. Matter of fact, we actually are using the Olympic Games are going on right now, which I'm not watching for reasons. You probably know why. Um, but that was a games created by the pagans in the Roman Empire, right, in circuses and stuff, right? So the Olympic Games is actually part of the plan to revise the Roman Empire. Fun facts. Anyway, so prophecy is being fulfilled. We don't know exactly how long it takes, but we know that prophecy is being fulfilled already because of all the Roman influence in society. It already proves that the fifth kingdom is basically here and it's becoming. But it'll be a one world government is what it'll be. And it'll be under the skies of the Antichrist and there'll be 10 kings that aren't kings that will give the power. So it's all part of Agendas 2030, United Nations and all that stuff. Those Christians can follow the Bible and then see what's happening and it's the conspiracies and it's biblicals and all that. Anyway, that's intro that had nothing. Well, it has a little bit, but it's not. It is not to match my main point. My main point is that we don't even know what day it actually is anymore. We don't know what that time of year it actually is anymore. We don't know any of that because the calendar's been so messed up and changed and rearranged. The names of the days are named after deities. The months, some of them are named after um, people and whatnot. So, if you really want to celebrate the seventh day, you'd have to go all the way to the moon calendar, go all the way far back. Then every seventh day, which would be Saturday, because the beginning of the week is Sunday, first day of the week, and you wouldn't call them that. You would just call it the seventh day. Okay, you wouldn't call day one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You would call it first day of the week, second day of the week, third day of the week, and so on and so forth, right? You would do that 4 times. Now, during the moon, the moon, now 7 times 4 is 28. So, bear with me here. So, on the fourth one, so now, where's the problem here? Okay, here's the problem. That's a 28-day calendar, which is the moon actually does not work on a 28-day calendar. Moon works on a 30-day calendar, so we're missing 2 days, right? And the moon appears for 3 days in the sky. 3 days. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Here. So, during the last day, you would have the new moon. Okay, so the moon begins the new month. So, fourth week, so you got 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Fourth week, you'd have the Sabbath day, which would be 28th day, 29th day would be the beginning of the new moon festival, right? So day 1 of the new moon. Then the new moon would be on day 30. The last day of the new moon, the third day of the new moon, would be the beginning of the new month. But it really wouldn't be the beginning of the new month because it would be, which the next day would be day 1 of a new week. So it's actually a 31-day calendar. 28, 29, first 30, 31, 1. So these 3 extra days, which it's very interesting that Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. You know, he died, he was in the tomb for 3 whole days, and then he rose again. So the old month died, and a new month is here. So every month we are celebrating our Savior's death, burial, and resurrection from the moon. Which I'm pretty sure the Jews and the Seventh-day Adventists, I don't know if they noticed that, but do you know you're also supposed to celebrate the new moons? And that the new moons count as a Sabbath day. So there's 3 Sabbath days in between the last day of the month. So if you don't count those, if you don't go month 1, month 2, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, 3 days, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, 3 days, etc., etc., you're actually not following the Sabbath day properly because the Sabbath day is every 7 days plus the 3 days of the new moon feast a month and then back to 1. So if you were to celebrate every 7 days, you'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 7, 7, 7, and then you're starting a new month at Monday. You're now 3 days behind because you forgot the you forgot the new moon 3 days. And then you'd be 6 days behind, 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, you'd be 9 days, 12 days. So you're 12 days behind. In a month, you'll be 12 days behind, which is actually would have had 1 Sabbath in those 12 days. Because, 7. And then another month goes by, you're 24 days behind. And another month goes by, so on and so forth. So you Seventh-day Adventists aren't actually following the proper calendar because you're just skipping the 3 moon days. Anybody, even the Jews, are actually skipping the 3 moon days. They're celebrating the Sabbath day, yes, but they're all skipping the 3 moon days. They're skipping the new moon feast, which also count as a Sabbath. So to properly celebrate the Sabbath day, we actually need to completely start over again, and start at a moon day. So the full moon's in the sky for 3 days. You start in the middle day of that day. The third day that the moon is in the sky is day 1, and you don't of the month, but you also don't, which makes it a 30-day month because 28 days, 29, 30, 1. So you'd actually start the new day of the month, first day of the week of the new month would be day 1 to day 28. So to properly celebrate the Sabbath day, it would be day 7, 7, 7, 7, 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, 29, 30, 1, and 1, 7, 7, 7, 7. So to properly follow it, you would have to do the moon day, last day of the week, last day of the month. Moon day, moon day, first day of the month. Monday again, or day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, day six, Sabbath. So it'd be Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, three, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven, three Sabbath days, new moon Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath, seven Sabbath. And you'd have to do that for 10 months. Now, if we do that, it's 30 days for 10 months, which is only 300 days. Right? Nah, no. See, that's where they also get it wrong. They thought it was 10 months. It's actually 12 months for a year. So that's 2 more days, which is 60. But then there's the New Year feast, which is the 5 days of the new year. See, 360 days, 60 times 12, 360. So there's still 12 months in a year. Then you have 5 days, which would be the New Year feast. All five of those days are also Sabbath days. So when you start the brand new year on day one. So we're actually, if you're not celebrating the 5 last days of the year, you're not celebrating the calendar right. And if you're not celebrating the moon Sabbaths, you're also not celebrating the calendar right. And you notice that in the winter time, at the end of the year, and then when a new year is about to begin, you notice that there's that there's that fifth stage, there's that longer moon time, and that is what actually makes up for the lost 5 days. When the moon, in one of those, it stays a little bit longer. Sometimes the moon is a full moon for 4 days instead of 3 days, which explains the double Sabbath days. That would be considered a double Sabbath day. And we know that Jesus was in the grave and for 3 whole days. So if he was killed on the Sabbath day and he couldn't rise until the first day of the week, which he did really, right? You would have had to have a double Sabbath day. And that is where you have the double Sabbath days to make up for those lost 5 days, which you don't really celebrate all five of those during the last 5 days of the year. There's 5 double Sabbath days during the year, and I'm not sure when they are, but they happen. So it's 5 times a year that this happens. I believe these are in concordance with when the seasons change, because there's 4 seasons, and one I believe is close around the beginning of the year. Problem is, the year doesn't begin in January in the proper calendar. So the year doesn't begin in January in the proper calendar. So it begins when the first moon, the first season begins. And since we don't actually have our 4 seasons in order, then our days are not, you know, But the system is actually perfect if we were to follow God's calendar. The problem is we don't follow God's calendar, and no one does. Jews don't follow it correctly. Seventh-day Adventists don't follow it correctly. No one truly follows God's perfect calendar correctly. So that's why we have problems. Plus, according to the Bible, there were times throughout scriptures where God held, he basically stopped the sun. So he literally stopped time. He froze time. He froze the time. Time has been frozen by God, which could be part of why we have those extra 5 days, but it's probably also why we have the extra 0.25. Because God stopped time for 6 hours. I know I'm showing 5, but I'm 6 hours. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He stopped time for 6 hours, which is a half a day, which is 0.25 of a day. That is why we have the extra 0.25 here. There is a passage in the Bible where there was a battle, and Joshua, I believe, asked the Lord to hold off the setting of the sun. God held off the setting of the sun for 6 hours, which is why we have an extra 0.25 days a year. Because God gave them an extra 0.25 days day to win the battle. He gave them 6 extra hours. They didn't have. Yeah. Anyway, that's just a little side note of why our calendar. So even God miraculously messed up his divine calendar for his people, for a righteous man to win a battle. So that's also part of why our calendar's, a little bit messed up. But still, no one is following the proper Sabbath day set of rules because we don't have the right calendar to do so. Now, when Jesus comes back, he will implement the proper calendar. So that's cool and everything. Anyway, so all these people being too legalistic, which is actually a big thing, because actually a lot of the legalism is basically trying to make people Jews that are not Jews. There's neither Jew nor Greek, Jew nor Gentile. We are all one body and one bride and one family of Christians. It is not necessary for us to follow all of the laws that were specifically for the Jews. Now, in the new world, in the new heaven and new earth, where Jesus reigns, we will follow everything properly because he will create a new earth. And when he creates a new earth for us to live on for the millennial reign, we'll start off a brand new calendar, a brand new year, a brand new everything. And thus we will follow the proper calendar of God. Anyway, remember God's good all the time. All the time God is good. Keep on gaming. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Jesus loves you, God. Jesus Lord, Jesus King. Jesus is ruler, everything. And I did not know I was going to preach to you for almost 30 minutes. So, but I just told you and explained things. So, some of you Jews or Seventh-day Adventists or whatever, you might try to get on to me. you might try to say something that maybe is something what I said was inaccurate. But it's not. It's not exactly inaccurate. And of course, legalism was a big issue. It was a big issue in the church, um, the new church, the New Testament church, and God had to deal with Peter about it, and he had to deal with some Judaizers about it and whatnot. And that's why we have several books in the New Testament that are actually dedicated and letters that are dedicated to stuff like that. Um, because Gentiles and Jews, they merge together to become Christians. A Gentile does not have to become a Jew to become a Christian. And a Jew does not necessarily now have to follow the Jewish laws, even though it is correct that obedience is better than sacrifice. Jesus was the sacrifice, so we don't need sacrifice. But if we love him, we'll keep his commandments. And yes, he has commandments, but to try to make Gentiles obey Jewish commandments is, you know, wrong because a lot of the commandments were specifically for Jews. And now that you are saved as a Christian, you are no longer Jewish anymore. You're Christian. So to think you have to continue following the rules of Judaism is also wrong. So, so yeah, so exactly. So you're not required to stay Jewish once you're saved, and you're not required as a Gentile to become Jewish to keep your salvation or to be saved. See, so yes, there's commandments. Yes, there's plenty of things Jesus said in the Bible, and a lot of them are addressed with the Big Ten, the Ten Commandments. And yes, Jesus followed the Sabbath day, but he followed the cultural Sabbath day because even the Jews, again, do not follow the proper Sabbath day. They go 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. And like I said, everybody's skipping the Newman. Everybody's skipping the double Sabbaths. Everybody's skipping, etc. Because you'd have to follow a secondary calendar for, I guess, religious reasons, which would be very confusing for, at work for stuff. And then follow the actual calendar that everybody else follows for well, not political, but social and economic and whatnot reasons. Anyway, it'd just be very complicated to do that. I mean, you can kind of follow it, but you still might be getting it wrong because without the knowledge of what now you Jews, you probably can tell me when those 4 or 5 double Sabbaths are. Like I said, I think they're the day they correspond probably to like somewhere around the day of the new, like the equinox days, because there's 4 of those. That's probably the 4 extra days is the different equinoxes for the winter, spring, summer equinox and solstice, right? I think winter, yeah, those days. Don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure of that, but it's winter, summer, spring, fall. You know, not necessarily in that order, but those are the uh, four seasons. the Bible does talk about times and seasons and all kinds of other stuff, and four winds and a whole bunch of different interesting things that are in the Bible. So, Bible has all this calendar system in place, and people just don't follow it because people would rather follow their way than God's way. That's the main reason. Anyway, have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the lecture, sermon, whatever, about the Sabbath day. Uh, the commandment in the Bible is honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Now, a lot of people want to say that it means you don't have to work on that day, but actually, that's not exactly what it means. I mean, did say in the Bible that God said that in 6 days He worked, and on the seventh day He rested. But does God really rest? I mean, God is God. He's in constant state of controlling and ruling and creating and orchestrating how the universe works. So, did He really rest? I mean, can He really rest? It's an interesting concept of God resting. It just meant that the day was, everything was complete for that purpose. So He rested. But how did He rest? He came down and He talked to Adam and Eve and gave them, rules and commandments to follow. That's how He rested. Well, actually, I think He just talked to Adam because I don't think Eve was created yet. But maybe she was. That's another Bible story. Another sermon or sermonette or whatever you want to call these, or lecture, or whatever. That's for another day. Anyways, yeah, I think I'm going to end right there and not continue on because I don't know if y'all have even got to this point. Later.